I'm going to talk you a little bit through our solution and what we're doing in the sports marketplace, and then we'll open it up for a couple minutes of Q&A as well. So we're really leading the digital transformation revolution in sports. I think the days are gone where you watch all your live sports on linear TV or on ESPN. Over the last 7 to 10 years, you've seen a huge transition start to take place in how sports events are streamed and what kind of events are being produced. So just to give you a little bit of perspective, most people think of live sports production. The first company that comes to mind for them is ESPN. And ESPN definitely does the highest end of productions, and they produce a lot of sports. They produce about 25,000 sports events a year. So to put in perspective the opportunity that's out there, Pixellot, who's the worldwide leader now in sports production, we've produced 5 million games worldwide. So 5 million compared to 25,000. Now these games are not of the highest of levels like the NBA or Major League Baseball, but it's everything that's below that. So today, the market's producing about 1% of the total sports events. So there's another 99% that's out there, and that's where Pixellot is really focused. So what we like to talk about as our vision is democratizing sports production, which is going after that other 99% that I just talked about. And so the areas of focus that includes are secondary leagues. So instead of just the premier leagues, we're focusing on the second, third, fourth, fifth leagues. We're focusing on women's sports, which you've seen a huge level of interest, at least in the United States, around women's sports. I don't know if anybody watched the finals of March Madness, but the women's finals drew 35% more than the men's finals did. There was something like 18 million people that watched the Iowa against South Carolina women's game, and about 14 million that watched the men's game, which first time ever that women's sports has outdrawn the men's viewership. Also youth sports, so most people don't think of youth sports as something that should be produced. However, as I'll show in a following slide, that's the base of the pyramid, at least in the United States. There's way more kids playing sports than any other level that you can look at. So the youth sports market is something that we've really focused on here in the United States, and you're seeing a lot of investment go into the youth sports marketplace. This just shows you the pyramid by numbers in the United States. So you've got 480,000 participants at the college level. That's Division I through NAIA, Division I, II, III, and NAIA all included there. In high school sports, which you have about 25,000 high schools in the United States, there's roughly 8 million athletes. And then you go into youth sports, and that's where you've got the 10x factor. There's 60 million kids just in the United States that are playing youth and amateur sports. Just in the last 24 months, you've seen big investment go into youth sports in the United States. KKR, which is one of the biggest global investors, invested in Play On Sports, which is our partner. You've seen Harris and Blitzer, who own about 7 professional teams. They own the Washington football team, was the Washington Commanders. They own the Cleveland Indians, the New Jersey Devils. They just launched a platform called Unrivaled Sports, where they're buying youth sports facilities. So they bought Ripken Baseball. They bought Cooperstown All-Star Village. They've put close to $1 billion of investment into youth and amateur sports. So when I say youth and amateur sports, that's sports that's 15 years and younger, so 6 to 15 years old. The market's been valued at $30 billion already currently, and we see hockey stick growth that's coming for this marketplace. The other important thing about youth and amateur sports is that parents spend a lot of money here. The studies show that 2 to 10% of their annual income goes towards one kid's sports. So if somebody's spending or making $100,000 a year, up to $10,000 they're spending on a kid's sport. Volleyball, hockey, lacrosse are probably the 3 sports that have the highest demographic and are charging the most, but basketball, baseball, other sports are up there as well. The other thing here is that sports, over the recessions that we've had over the last 20 years, there's been 2 recessions in that period, it's shown to be recession-proof. The last thing that a parent's going to cut is their kids' sports experience or their subscriptions to a platform to watch their kids' sports. So this shows a little bit of the hockey stick growth that Pixellot's experienced. So we've been around for about 10 years now. And this data goes back 7 years to 2017. So you'll see Q1 of 2017, we were producing about 2,000 hours of live sports production. Whereas Q1 of last year, that's our busiest season in the fall when you've got all the football games and soccer games going, we produced 886,000 hours of live sports content in a 3-month period. And this next fall, we're expecting with the number of cameras we've got out there to be over 1 million hours of sports content just in Q1. We've developed advanced algorithms for 19 different sports. So most people think of Pixellot, the folks that know us in the industry, as soccer or American football or basketball, because those are probably the 3 sports that we do the most of. But we've got unique algorithms for 19 different sports. And so we've done advanced tracking on sports that might be small, like netball in the United States, cricket, rugby, et cetera, sports that you wouldn't think of as being the large market. We're also focusing on those because those are the sports that usually don't have the sponsorship dollars or the viewership to have traditional production. So that's been a big market for us. These are just some numbers to give you a background on our company. So as I mentioned, we've been around for a little over 10 years. Our focus is mostly on fixed installation, although I'll talk about a mobile product that we have soon as well. But we have 40,000 venues across the world, roughly 60% in the United States, 40% rest of the world, where we've got a fixed installation and we're producing every single event that happens on that field. We've got about 220 employees, and we're producing events in over 80 countries. So it's not just the producing of live sports content that does the trick, right? We've got to have other tools for our partners to be able to get a return on their investment through investing in our technology. And so there's a lot of different things that we've started to invest in and also acquire other businesses that add pieces to the value chain. So the first and the key, I'd say the pillar to what we do is automated sports production. So what that means is that we're replacing the cameraman that are holding cameras. We're replacing the production truck that would be deciding when you're going from which angle to which angle. We're automating that entire workflow. That's really the base of it. Then the next thing is automating stats and analytics, which is also needed, right? To have graphics on the screen, you need to have statistics. For coaches, you need to have statistics. So we've also built AI models to be able to automate some of that piece of the workflow. And then once you automate that workflow of the analytics and the stats, there's a whole infrastructure around personal highlights. So at least in the United States, most of you are familiar with NIL, which is name, image, likeness. So there's a whole new wave in college, high school, and even amateur sports to be able to monetize those individual clips for individual athletes. So then they can put that on their social, drive their following, and then sell sponsorships as an individual athlete to monetize your brand. And so, as I'll show you later, we're starting to track by uniform number and automate those highlights for individuals so that they can take that content and start to monetize it. We've also acquired a white label OTT so that if our partner needs a way to get direct to their consumer, they don't want to take it to another platform like Peacock, which we have partners that take it to Peacock or to YouTube, we can build a white label OTT solution for them. So an example of that would be Supersport TV, which is our partner in South Africa. We created the apps, the website, the subscription service for them to take the content that we're producing automatically and put it into an infrastructure where they can monetize all of that content. Automated live graphics, being able to have the rosters on the screen, be able to put sponsors on the screen. We've also rolled that out. So on the left, I'm going to get deeper into this. This shows the different solutions that we have to capture the content. And then the second key pillar that we have is the automatic production, actually taking that content that we're capturing and putting it into a workflow that can be distributed anywhere. And then the media and coaching side is also where we've invested a lot. The white label OTTs, being able to monetize through sponsorship, being able to send content through betting partners. We've also invested in that side of it, and then the whole analytics side of it as well. So these are the different solutions that we have that I'll talk about for a little bit. So the solution on the left is called Pixellot Prime. So this is more our broadcast type of solution. It's 1080p, 60 frames per second. When we work with a partner like ESPN or NBC who uses our technology, we use that high-end solution. So that's our most expensive solution. Then in the middle, where most of our product is today, is the Pixellot Show. So we've got two solutions here, the S3, which is the one on top, which has 3 cameras that can be controlled remotely. If you've got to adjust the cameras or if the camera head gets moved, we can adjust those cameras remotely. And then the S2, which is our lower end solution and being used at the widest scale today. Then the Pixellot Air, we rolled out about 2 years ago. This is really targeted towards the youth sports market where you don't have a set field. The Pixellot Show and Prime is a permanent installation. You would install it at a high school, it stays there 12 months a year, produces everything. The Pixellot Air fits in one hand, weighs like 2 pounds. You take it from field to field. So you put it up on a tripod, set it up for that 2-hour game, take it down. The next weekend you might be on a different field. And then the Pixellot Solo is our newest solution, which is fixed frame streaming. So very low cost. We're actually the software only in this case. We recommend where you buy the hardware, but we're not involved in the hardware. We're just the software, and we provide the whole infrastructure for streaming there. The main sports that we're focusing on with the Pixellot Solo are smaller surfaces. So sports like pickleball, paddle, table tennis, tennis, those are the sports that the Pixellot Solo was developed for. So this just shows you, the video should play here, a little bit on how the technology is working. So that video is not playing for some reason, but I'll explain it to you. So the top screen shows what the 4 cameras were, that was the device like this that I showed you with the Pixellot Prime. It's capturing a quadrant of the field. So each of those 4 cameras are capturing 1/4 of the field. Then what we're doing is taking those 4 cameras and stitching those together to create a very high quality panorama. And that's what you see in the bottom of your screen here. I wish the video would play. But the bottom is that high quality panorama, and then what our AI does is zoom into where the ball and the people are. So what the end user is watching is not that panorama that you see. They're seeing like 1/3 of that panorama of where the action is. And then it looks like somebody's moving the camera back and forth, but we're really just moving within that high quality panorama. And so this slide shows you what is actually happening. So on the left here, you see what our advanced algorithms are doing. The red box that's going back and forth is what the end user is actually watching. And then the little boxes around the players are the object tracking that we're doing. We're finding where the ball is, where the players are, and then we're tracking within that. And then on the right side, you see what that looks like in an actual production. So that video on the bottom is what the viewer is seeing. The video on the top is showing you what our AI is doing during the game. So here's more of a high-end broadcast solution. We've done this. This isn't the MLS, but we've done this for the MLS at the Next Pro level, which is their second tier. So you see the automated production, which is identifying where the action is so that the viewer is just watching, what part of a game a cameraman would be zoomed in on. We have the ability to sync additional angles. So this example is not showing it, but we can put cameras on the 18s in soccer or in the goals. And then you could have a one-person show that's deciding when you go from the camera 1, which is our automatic production, to these additional angles. The scoreboard that you see in the top left, that's also 100% automated. So we do that through one of 2 ways. We have a solution that plugs into the scoreboard, pulls the data from the scoreboard, and then shows you this graphic that you see with team names, logos, the score. We also have an OCR solution. So if you don't have a high-end scoreboard, we can point a camera at the scoreboard, be able to use optical recognition to detect what's on the scoreboard, turn that into data, and then show you an actual graphic, not just like a picture-in-picture of the scoreboard. So this shows you some of the enhanced graphics that we have. This is that MLS example that I talked about. So before the game, we can have on there the logos like you would see in a traditional broadcast. Then you have the starting lineups that would come up. And then during the game, we also have in-game stats that we'd be able to show. So it really gives you that broadcast feel like you would have with an ESPN game. So this is the rosters that we have, the position by number, each place they go. This is all being done 100% automatically. There's nobody in the venue with this broadcast. We also have the ability to call the game remotely, so you don't have to have the announcer that's in studio at the game. This game, for example, was in Colorado. We had somebody that was in California watching the stream, calling it from a green room in their house, and the audio is syncing up to this game. So this show is 100% remote, not one person in venue that's doing it. And so what that does is it brings down the cost of production drastically. Instead of being a $10,000 production, which is what this type of game would usually be, we're talking about a couple $100 production. So the next thing I want to show you is how we're doing automated personal highlights. So this game was actually captured here in Las Vegas. It was part of the NBA Summer League. So on the left, you can see what we're doing to track uniform numbers to create these highlights, okay? And then the end output is what's on the right, which would be just number 17, his basket scored. So we're using optical recognition to track the uniform number during the game. So we're tracking number 10, number 12, number 17, and then we're tracking when the ball goes through the hoop. And so at the end of the game, you get a personal highlight clip by player, 100% automatically, nobody's tagging this, so that individual player can take that content and use that for NIL. The team can use that for their marketing purposes, etc. So the last thing that I want to talk through is 2 case studies, just to put some of the work that we've done into a real-life use case for you. So the first case study that I'm going to talk about is the NFHS network, which is the National Federation of High Schools. So it's similar to the NCAA that many of you are familiar with, but this is all of the high schools. So they govern high school sports for roughly 25,000 high schools across the United States. We started working with them about 7 years ago. We did our first POC with them. They were in business before we worked with them. So they had student-run broadcasts that were being done across the country. So they would have, a high school student that would be manning the camera, a high school student that would be doing the graphics, a high school student that would be calling the game. Their business was barely surviving. It was very hard for them to predict if that student was going to show up to do the game, if that student was going to be looking at their phone during the game and missing the action. The quality of broadcasts was just all over the map. They'd have some great broadcasts, some very bad ones, some that were missed completely. So they have the exclusive rights. Play on Sports did a partnership with the National Federation to create a joint venture called the NFHS network. And they got the rights from all 50 states to broadcast their championship events. So it would be like, ESPN doing a rights deal with the ACC to create the ACC network. They did this with high school sports. And then what they do is monetize that content through individual subscriptions. So if you want a monthly subscription to see any high school in the whole United States, you pay $12 a month, like your Netflix subscription. Or you can pay $80 for a whole year of content. That gets you every single high school, not just your high school, but you can watch your cousins play, your nephews play, your childhood friends play, etc. And then they offer a revenue share to the school. So the school gets 10% of all that revenue that's generated through their school back to them. And then the state association, so Nevada State Association, California State Association, they're also getting a percentage. So they've given back over $15 million back to local high schools through this initiative over the last few years. And then, I'd say the big thing that I talked about a little earlier was the scalable solution. That's what was most important to them, was once they installed our cameras, now they had something that they could have consistent production of and really scale across the whole United States. So prior to COVID, they were charging for our solution. So they'd buy from us, then sell it to a high school. Once COVID hit, they saw the opportunity that not everybody could go to games. Games started to be played again after a few months, but a lot of schools were having limitations on who could go watch. So NFHS Network decided to make our technology for free and take the bet if they put this hardware and software solution in, that they could monetize the subscription. And that's when their business really went through the roof. They went from having 3,000 installations to now we have 20,000 installations just in US high schools. We're producing about 1.5 million games a year for NFHS Network. So their average cost of production went way down from several $100s a game to now, because they're at big scale, less than $100 a game is their production cost. They're doing over 15,000 games every single weekend on the NFHS network. They've generated over 1 million paid subscribers through the network that they have. We have 9,000 individual schools that have it. Most schools have 2 of our systems, so they'll have one system indoor that covers basketball, volleyball, wrestling, anything that you'd have in the gym. And then they usually have a system outdoor that would cover lacrosse, American football, soccer, field hockey, etc. And so the scale that they get with each system is huge, because in high schools, so many teams are sharing one field. They only need one of our systems per field. Then in the schedule, they update, okay, this is lacrosse. It changes to our algorithm for lacrosse. Now it's football. It'll change to our algorithm for football. But they're all on the same field, so they get incredible economies of scale. The second partner that I'm going to talk about, and then I'll turn it over to the group if there's any questions, is SportsEngine. SportsEngine is a registration platform that was started about 15 years ago, and then NBC, the big broadcaster, actually bought SportsEngine about 6 years ago. So it's under the NBC Sports Next umbrella. So what they did when they first started was really digitizing sports registration. So when you would sign your kids up for sports, you used to write a check and fill out a piece of paper, and then that's how they'd have your kid in that league. They digitized that entire process, and we're really the leader in it. So they have a huge platform now of youth sports participants. They have over 16 million youth athletes registering through their platform every single year. They have 25 million monthly active users on their platform. Again, that's for registration, not for media. But since NBC purchased them, and NBC is a media company, they saw the media opportunity, and they launched, in partnership with us, a platform called SportsEngine Play. SportsEngine Play is essentially their NFHS network, or their YouTube for youth and amateur sports. So today, most of the games are living on SportsEngine Play, which is their own platform, but the long-term vision is to have games of the week that would go on Peacock, which is a much bigger NBC platform. SportsEngine Play isn't just live streaming. They have VOD on there. They have highlights on there. They have masterclass type of content. So they partnered with Michael Phelps and Simone Biles and Alex Rodriguez, athletes like that, and created content that athletes and parents would want in addition to just watching their kids' live sports content. And so they've rolled out this very similar business model to what we did with NFHS Network. They saw the success in the high school market. Now they're taking that to youth sports. So essentially the business model is they'll go to a venue that has 7 fields, 2 fields, however many fields they have. They'll give them our technology for free. So SportsEngine buys the hardware and software solution from us. They give it to that venue at no cost, and then they monetize all of the content from that venue and charge a subscription. So they're charging right now $9 a month or $60 a year to be able to see all the content, masterclass plus live streaming plus highlights on SportsEngine Play. And then they also give a rev share back to the facility, similar to how NFHS Network was doing it, so that the facility gets a return on the time and investment that they're going to put into being a partner in the live stream. So I have about 5 minutes left, which is the time I wanted to leave for Q&A here. So curious if anybody has any questions, comments on anything that I just covered. Right here.
You have to work through that sports engine to stream it out. So I'm part of the school system. We've got 100 schools, so 150 fields, 150 museums. Can we stream that to our channel without going through a third party and monetizing it?
Good question. So just to repeat the question, this gentleman asked, can we push the content out to a different location if we're installed at a youth sports facility or a high school, right? The answer is yes. So we can send content out in any way, RTMP, RTSP. We have SDI out also on our units where we can take content out. Now, when NFHS Network puts our system in a high school, they have complete control of the content. So they obviously don't want the content going to other locations because they want it paid there. But we do have other partners that are working with us and taking it to their own destination. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Great. Right here.
My son plays AAU basketball, and I know that there's some teams that have Nike relationships and other kinds of relationships. Are there, do those companies have licensing agreements for filming and distributing that content, or is that part of, have they gotten to this point yet?
Yeah, good question. So the question was that his son plays AAU basketball, which is a youth organization. Do they have licensing agreements, or is it just kind of open greenfield right now? So AAU, as an example, we do some work with them. At their national championship, they have rights agreements. Some of them are with competitors to us. Some of them will do them on their own and monetize the content. But below the national championships, it's pretty much greenfield. I mean, very few of them have rights agreements below that. Right here.
Have you considered using mobile phones from participants, people like 4 or 5 phones along the field or something?
Very good question. So the question was, have we considered using mobile phones as the capture device? We actually have started some development using the iPhone, specifically the iPhone 13 and 14, to be able to be the capture device and then running our software on top of that. It's not a product that's rolled out yet, but it is something we're working on, because I do think that as the camera improves, you're going to be able to get live production from that. The biggest challenge right now is just being able to capture a whole court or field. So it's working in the beta testing we've been doing in basketball and volleyball, smaller courts. In soccer, lacrosse, bigger, wider fields, it's a little more challenging. Any other questions before we wrap up here? All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.